Love spaces, or the politics of pathos in the living space. The lockdown measures in the Netherlands are being eased, and I am not ready for it. At the moment I was writing this piece, I am in my bed with the curtains closed. I live in the city center on the ground floor with big windows, and it makes me more aware now. I live in, now that I have been closing in. I'm a concept editor and a cultural producer from the city of Groningen. Occasionally, I'm a writer of poetry, essays, and plays. I enjoy the activity of thinking the most. It is precious to me. I'm sure if it makes me sane or not. I feel like I'm not ready to go back in time to what, to a new normal. Is this a state of grief? I need to figure out why I have the feeling I'm not ready by taking you through the same journey of concepts and ideas I've been thinking with the last couple of weeks. In the meantime, I will, I hope, sorry, I lost my sentence. And I hope that in the meantime, I will provide you with some meaningful insights that will fuel your confidence in your creative practice. From the house as an instrument to the power of pathos, to the household object-oriented ontology and the stretching of time and love. Right now, I am hesitant in my enthusiasm about the easing of the measures. At first, I was frustrated and feeling uncomfortable about the optimism that came within the first week of lockdown. At last, the media revealed the spotlight on our vital professions, and now that we were all under attack, everybody acted out as a socialist. Care for our neighbors, care for our vulnerable people, wary of capitalism and neoliberalism. Should we watch out for fascism too? Well, at the same time, the government saved our economy. I got €1,000 and other companies some more. Actually, I was so frustrated by everything that seemed optimistic and creative in its solution that I imagined a strike. I hoped nobody would try his very best to stay on his feet. I had no hope that even one national or international revelation would stay put post-corona. I feel ashamed that this is what I felt. I was suffering from something that a feminist theorist, Rosie Bardotti, calls lament, 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 as I will explain later. Optimism has had a cruel attachment in my vocabulary for some time now, as it seems to hold up an ambitious promise, a promise that we will feel better if we do certain things first. And I did not want to be disappointed. I imagined a strike to save myself from the 24-hour economy, do nothing, detox from the cynical attitude I had. But the longer I was thinking about our worldly condition, the longer the detox seemed to take, feeling exhausted. The day before the so-called intelligent lockdown of the Netherlands started, I did a big grocery shopping with my friend called C. He is a designer and the owner of an art residency, opening up his house as an instrument for other people to use. I help C around the big house sometimes, covering the meals for the artist amongst other things. This time we were supposed to be part of a gallery route. We were bonding with the artists who were building up an installation in the attic next to the library. The installation was almost ready and the route was about to start off when we decided to cancel the exhibition because of the virus. I missed the big house, the artist and my friends immediately. I'd been so optimistic about the upcoming month. But most of all, I missed the way we shaped our actions over there. Every small thing I did seemed to have more meaning when I was over there. Things I did not acknowledge at my own house. Doing dishes is also ontology. Go back to the things that exist in front of you, she told me. I've always found doing dishes calming, but the meaning of it changed after this. Doing dishes poses time. While you hold and clean, it organizes. You are in service of the things you hold. You are in a relation. You are not almighty. Doing the dishes makes you more machine than you thought so. Doing the dishes is also a knowledge unformed. It is an object-oriented ontology, situated too, as it is near you in your kitchen, in your living space. It is a knowledge unformed until you ask yourself something. thinking of the beautiful phrases of Kate Tempest in her latest video on Instagram. When time pulls lives apart, hold your own. When everything is fluid and nothing can be known with any certainty, hold your own. Hold it till you feel it there, as dark and dense and wet as earth, as fast and bright, as sweet as air. When all there is knowing that you feel what you are feeling, hold your own. Ask your hands to know the things they hold. Realizing that there were few things that I could understand these days except my own thoughts and feelings, my own things and beings, I started a diary. The objects in my living space were part of the machine now. The objects helped me ask things, collect new scenarios in my head. Starting a diary from this point of view was liberating. I could write from the top of my head. We were already a month into the intelligent lockdown by now. In the first month, I dived into the popular concept of the Anthropocene. The writings of Michel Serres catch my eye, a philosopher of science, blowing up dualism in all sorts of ways. He was ahead of his time in writing on the humankind as a geological force before the Anthropocene even entered the widespread discourse of today. He claimed that while the humankind made its social contract among men, they forgot a third party. Focusing on blowing up dualism, this third essence is important in his thinking. Serres described it using a painting of Franciscus of Goya called Fight with Cudgels, where two men are fighting on quicksand. While the men agree to not hit each other to death over disagreement, they are unaware of the quicksand they stand on. Although we often do fight, affirming that this contract is not neutral in its power, deciding who can live or die, we agreed on a reserved attitude towards every person that we recognize under the universal human rights. But this reserved attitude is hardly ever there when we talk about nature and the non-human. We use it as a never-ending sword. It is hard to think about nature as a third party, taking the importance of ethos and logos, of this neutral and universal thinking in account. Because let's be honest, we don't assume the rocks, mountains, the water of Venice, or the clouds in the sky to make a rational deal with us. And it does not fit to see humanity as a similar kind of force as nature is, uncontrollable and slow, part of deep time. Is it too late now to set a deal, or can we still imagine something different? After this month, I searched for an escape outside the city using my diary. On the 26th of March, I wrote that if one of my best friends got lost during his travels, I would make the same journey as him, travel right behind him over land. I put his picture in my pocket and knock on the doors in the small villages up to Russia where he teaches and ask if they've seen him. I enjoyed giving my fears of losing control a fantasy, although I found it had a pathetic tone. I shared the passage with a writer colleague, apologizing for the pathos it contains. She answered by saying, "Pathetic suits the medium," and asked what was wrong with it. She considered it might be a Dutch thing, holding something against pathetics, and I wondered if we should ever be ashamed of our soul-searching state of minds. During these weeks, I have seen a lot of my friends going inwards, searching their souls. Healing is what I heard, a time of catching some breath and sleep, a time of thinking through. How can we use these spaces without shaming them? I thought about a familiar in my life who has been bound to her home before Corona for several reasons. It is not possible to write about me, because I do not exist, she said to me. But I see her existing. It does matter because it is matter. Presently, we are all bound to our houses, if we can, existing, carrying pathos, the third party. How can we make ourselves accountable for these feelings? What do we do with our pathetic sentiments? Braidotti called out upon the lament of the left philosophers in her lectures and the overwhelming fatigue of the citizenry in the Western world. She claims that with the not yet scientific approved use of the concept of the Anthropocene, a lack of creativity and energy has occurred. Why are we all so tired? And why does this concept come with panicking the extinction of men? In this scheme, How to Die in the Anthropocene seems to be the next self-help book. The world has constantly existed with epidemics and crises. However, in the light of climate change and the Anthropocene, the motive seems to change, ignoring there has been survival among the humanist humans all along. As Braidotti can go on and on burning the concept down, I do agree on her opinion that blaming, for example, capitalism as the big destroyer does not get us out of bed easier. Capitalism does not exist outside us, it is also in us. And yes, that does hurt me. Being guilty of the very thing that exhausts me so much. Tired of everything and nothing at once. The pathos of the apocalyptic image of the Anthropocene may not be helpful, but the pathos of the individual might. We must not despair, but see where it hurts so much. Why am I stressed? Time. Why am I tired? Time. Why am I scared? Time. Who can I touch? Less. Who is there to love? Less. What is left? Less. It is this cruel optimism of feeling the lack of something, the belief that if we can catch up, I will feel better. Braidotti emphasizes on the importance of changing our idea of time as a linear concept. It is not a flattened moment that can suddenly stop, whereafter we all fall off a cliff, because that does seem terrifying. She calls out for a different temporality coming from L0st. The present is both the record of what we are ceasing to be and the seeds of what we are in the process of becoming. This time continuum multiplies your temporal skill, giving the opportunity to let the virtual come closer to the present. The death of man, the erasure of humanism as we know it, is an opening to think about new possible futures, which seems more hopeful and creative than a cliff. I want to finish with a last insight connected to this temporality. The Dutch-American writer and philosopher Yvonne Zeegers recently posted about love on Instagram, stating that loving fewer people will not protect us. Quoting Clementine Morgan reacting on the Quebec Minister of Public Health in Canada, stating that monogamy is preferable in these times. We are taught to think from scarcity. Our whole economy is built on the principle of scarcity, and the idea of controlling this natural scarcity fuels our obsession with growth. She places a longing for more in a totally different frame. To want, to fantasize what is not yet here, it can help us formulate a demand for more, one that cannot be satisfied by capitalist growth. When we are thriving on a scarcity-driven motivation, we might be eating by this thing we keep forgetting, a quicksand, chronos, and scarcity. However, when we try to bend the fundament of scarcity by reformulating the politics of pathos in our homes, and by sharing them as much as we can, we might win some, making ourselves accountable by speaking from pathos, a truth to power. The missing link in our knowledge production now is the power of the imagination, that familiar, unfamiliar space, a starting point where we can find importance and a renewed motivation embedded in multiple temporalities from multiple locations. Perhaps the conference of today is a beginning, a demand for more. Thank you for listening.